You know, when you're 18,
What else are you gonna
you're
do?
fearless, man. Had help written on the back door of the ambulance. People love it. You come rolling in with all the lights going on.
Yeah. You were a hellion, Dallas.
Well, I think we'll get started. So, talk about the website. You have anything you want to start off with, Chris?
Well, Mr. Mayor, that's all right. We just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to see real briefly the work that we've done with regard to the website and some of the changes that have been made and some utility that it has now and that kind of thing. And so with that, if we could turn the time over to Mike to walk us through that quickly and enable you an opportunity to ask any questions.
It's really nicely done.
It looks good.
Really nicely done.
Thank you.
I'm happy. with
Good
it.
work. So if I could, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor, turn the
absolutely.
time over to Michael and walk us through it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As the city manager said real briefly, basically it's a facelift of the current website. We didn't go out and have a complete redesign done. This was actually part of our maintenance agreement where they would do this this refresh, so to speak, of the site as part of the maintenance agreement. So as you see, it's new look and feel on the home page, and then different menu structure and basically different templates for all the subpages. What we did do is we took the opportunity to make it more engaging with the citizenry, specifically with these quick link menu choices, some of our more popular sites. This is a rotating banner. I hope y'all enjoyed that. All your lovely faces are there.
How'd that woman get on there? Oh, that's you.
And then
Chris is smiling pretty big over there.
everybody's happy. We also, the other big thing that we did as well, this is real popular with websites now, is a how do I, and then allow people to apply, sign up for, get information about, report. That's really one of the main areas for that back and forth engagement. Traditionally, websites are a lot of you providing information, but we have a lot of areas on our website where people can sign up for things, where they can make applications, where they can they want to report crimes or report potholes, things like that. We have all of those abilities on our website. So with that said, I don't want to take up too much time, but that's it in a nutshell. We also did add the ability for people of different languages to be able to choose a different language. It's got links to Facebook, YouTube. Real quick, down and dirty.
Questions? Bob?
I like where you guys put the meetings and agendas in our old one. Sometimes it was a little bit hard to get to if you were looking for a specific meeting, and that's really helpful. Good job.
Do we have any
Gotta get
job
rid of those
openings
talking heads, so.
I was talking.
Do we have any job?
besides the police department?
I'm not sure. The question was, Mr. Mayor, if we have any job openings out there besides what we might see in
I see
PD?
job opening, just wonder if we actually had any.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's even one in IT. And looks like we have 2 pages worth.
Wow. Where do you apply?
Right there.
Right
You
there.
can apply right through that.
Just click on it.
Choose it. The apply button.
Cool. What does the fleet manager have to do? That looked like a pretty good salary.
Manage the fleet.
Does
What
he
is there, 500
Does
vehicles
he
or
have to
something?
have a wrench and get out there, or does he?
Does a little bit of it all. Yeah, you
Wow.
betcha.
Okay, what's a yard call on the, how do I, it was on the left side, request a yard call?
That's the yard call.
Oh,
Color me the
So for pruning advice, better dying trees, tree identification. That's cool. Somebody else might be able to speak more intelligently to a yard call than I.
That is quite
I thought I was the one they called for the fixing the potholes. Did you take me off the hook?
That's called you jumping Larry.
Yeah.
People don't call me to fix them, but they should be pointed out.
Oh, yeah, they call me in. They don't call me, they find, I'm sitting there eating lunch or something. This morning I had a guy come in and say, he didn't want parking meters, he said, we should let the downtown businessmen run our streets.
I think you did a nice job on that.
Yeah, you did a nice job,
Came
Mike.
together good.
It was
Yep. Great.
It was a team effort, so.
That's really, really good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
He is smiling.
It happens occasionally.
Next item is the I-25 marginal cooperative agreement.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, sir. As you know, anytime we work with YDOT to jointly do a project, it will typically require an agreement that outlines the relationship that the city and the state will have. Generally, it defines contributions from a monetary standpoint, as well as defines things that the city's expected to do and so forth. With regard to this particular project, we wanted to give you a chance to understand the scope of what we're suggesting, give you the opportunity to ask any questions or provide any direction, in that we are coming to the point where we will ask you for a signature, if you will, or authorization to have the agreement be signed to do the marginal project, which is that project at the end of Walsh, right?
Curtis to
And,
Walsh.
Yes, that's right. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, if I could give some time to Director Beamer to walk us through some of the major tenets of this agreement.
Thank you, Connie, Your Honor, Council. Councilman Hopkins, it's that big superstructure, the interstate superstructure from Walsh Drive all the way to Curtis Street that is no longer necessary with the abandonment of the railroad. So the YDOT's designing to bring that superstructure completely down to grade. There will still be an overpass over Walsh Drive, but there's enhancement funds available for this project that is available to the local community for Casper in the tune of $510,000, of which 93% of that cost is federal funds. The city would have to obligate roughly 7% of matching funds to supplement that. So for $510,000, the city would be on the hook for roughly $39,000. The enhancements can be ranging from landscaping, decorative lighting. There's a proposal to further connect the rails to trails pathway from Walsh Drive to Curtis Street. They could be form liners on their abutments, colored concrete. Nothing has been set in stone yet, but that's the type of projects that these funds can be utilized for. So,
Questions? Bob?
I think we're losing the distinction of having the longest bridge in Wyoming too, is that correct? I think it is.
YDOT is.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it's not a city
Right.
structure, and it costs YDOT, I forget how many millions a year
Yeah,
to
it's a
maintain that
huge maintenance
superstructure.
bill for 'em.
What's their timelines?
I think construction is probably 2 years out at least.
Any other questions for Andrew? Kenny?
So is it, in the end, it costs us $86,000? We're
Your Honor,
responsible.
yeah, the intent would be that we do the design enhancements completely outside of this contract with YDOT. It makes it a lot easier for us to go through our process without negotiating through YDOT's process to select a landscape architect, design professional. And we simply get that design done and give it to YDOT to incorporate into their plans. And I'm estimating that cost would be roughly $50,000.
Charlie?
Just going back to Councilman Huber's concern, this kind of engineering isn't something we have the capability to do in-house.
It all depends on what is desired. If you're looking for a lot of landscape enhancements and that kind of stuff, nobody has historically given engineers a lot of credence with an eye towards beauty. So, we're very good at functional things, but not necessarily aesthetic.
I get it.
You can-
Thanks.
So Andrew, basically, we just need a thumbs up to move this on the floor. Is that what we need to be able to do?
Is the thumbs up for, so clearly we've got we've got the 36 grand and the remaining for the construction, is it being lumped in together?
Your Honor, what you'll see probably is the cooperative agreement with YDOT, which will obligate that $36,000 matching fund. We will prepare an RFP to solicit proposals for the enhancements, if you will, and that will come to council at a later date.
So 36,000 will go
That's part of the
towards
cooperative.
actually the road design, the rest we'll still be approving that RFP when it comes through, so.
The 36,000 is our matching obligation for the enhancement funds.
Right.
We'll bring a separate contract for the design enhancements.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, which means that that would be an extra cost
Correct.
additional to the 36,000.
Around maybe 50. That's what
Right,
we're talking.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But that'll be a separate
Correct,
agreement.
correct, correct.
Charlie?
Maybe I missed this, and where is this in the budget?
Andrew, where do we?
Your Honor, Council, there's a leftover 1 cent 13 funds that was available for park improvements or landscape that we're planning on utilizing for this project.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, which is consistent with the original resolution that was passed for 13 way back when, in terms of the categorical use of those kinds of funds.
Bob? Just out of curiosity, what's the engineer's estimate for the actual YDOT portions, like 4, 5, 6 million?
Oh, it's probably north of that.
Is it?
Your Honor, it's probably 10+ million, I would guess.
Any other questions? Is everybody okay with it?
Okay.
Item 3, thanks Andrew. Item 3, proposed amendment for fiscal year 17-18 annual action plan. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You recently had the discussion with regard to the fiscal year 19 annual action plan as it relates to CDBG dollars that the city was considering taking or not taking. In this particular circumstance, with the dollars that we already have, we need to propose an amendment that would allow for an expenditure to a series of projects and so forth that we didn't have in the original plan, that we need to get your direction on amending. And so with that, if I could turn the time over to Liz and Joy to kind of walk us through this a little bit. This is for dollars, again, that you already have on hand, that you've already been given by virtue of our submittal of the original action plan, probably a couple of years ago at this point in time, right? So if I could, Mr. Mayor, turn the
Yes.
time over to Liz and Joy, that'd be great.
Your Honor, members of council, and as Carter kind of teed it up, we had spoken last week about the $300,000 that we have as residual funds that we do want to continue to deploy over the next year. Of that, what we've asked for this evening is for a total of $71,874 to be reallocated to Life Steps Campus. This is part of that $300,000 that, as Carter explained, we did not have a project assigned to. We had initially thought we would do something with the money, and that goes back to 2014 and to 2016, and it was for some sidewalks that we were looking at. But this is money that we have found a new need for at Life Steps Campus in the kitchen, and the memo goes into some detail that Joy was alerted by the health department that the kitchen floor was very spongy, and that kitchen is well utilized by the residents at the campus. It's also utilized for public meetings, and it's something that we would definitely want to open up an invitation to you all to tour. But it is it's an asset for the campus, and it has been considered not usable and probably a big problem by the health department. And so Joy would like to get the direction from you to reallocate this from some unexpended funds, which is part of that residual amount, and redirected to get that kitchen floor up to speed in Building C.
Questions for Liz?
I see the 246,000 is the unchanged total. Does that include the 71?
Originally, the allocation of the annual action plan was about $175,000 that we wanted to put towards it. The 71 is on top of that, so that brings it to that 246 figure that you see, Your Honor.
Other questions? Where did we come up with 71,000 as an estimate?
From 2014, we have 31,000 in demolition funds, and I feel that it's better use than tearing something down to put it on the campus where we're gonna completely benefit the low-income residents that live there.
I guess my question is, how
She
much?
got estimates.
Oh,
Oh, demolition was residual funds, excuse me.
Estimates to complete the floor, is that what you're asking,
Mhm.
Aaron? She did.
The estimates were all in that same range then?
Estimates are in that range, Mayor, Council. You are required to, when you have unexpended funds, you are required to move them to a project when one becomes available. If the funds are not completely used on that, I have other floors up there that need replaced and some really bad sidewalks. If you've walked up there, you may have tripped on one.
Others?
Your Honor, we'd like to invite council, if you'd like to come up to the campus. There have been such a tremendous number of improvements made with CDBG funding, but also the Casper Housing Authority, as your housing authority for the city, has done some great work up there. So it's always open, and they have a little chef up there through the housing authority that would create some little tasties in the kitchen with the spongy floor, but again, they would be happy to entertain and host you all for just a few little bites. And we've used them before for catering for some city meetings, so it's just a nice opportunity to get our low-income population trained into some skill sets. So the invitation is standing, and again, I know the housing authority would love to host you.
Yes.
If we have this extra money and there's problems with concrete, why don't we just fix that too with this extra money? Or the other
Mayor,
floors or
council
whatever?
will, that is, in our list of, if there's money remaining from the floor replacement, then it will go into the concrete and other dangerous flooring areas.
Well, how much total money do we have?
Your Honor, members of council, we've got the 300,000. And in the annual action plan last year, we laid out the activities that we want to put that into. Some goes into, again, Joy's salary, but some goes into helping rehabilitation on homeowners, and we shared how long some of those projects take for the low-income emergency repairs, which is a very critical project. We have some with the Life Steps campus. We have some with facade grants. So any monies that's not expended in that approved plan that HUD blessed, then we have to go through this public process with all of you to say, okay, we're not gonna spend this 71,000, can we redivert it? So we can't just willy-nilly take the 300,000 that we do have to use and put it into concrete unless we do see that we have a surplus in that area. So it's very process focused. The 71,000 has risen to the top of this residual funding, so that's what we're asking about today.
Had another 360 to have plenty of money.
Go ahead, Bob.
Not gonna go
Yeah,
there.
more of a comment, I think. We inherited this property 20 years ago, something like that. I don't remember,
Plus.
25 years ago. Since that time, we put considerable amount of money on it, but it's unique for a city in Wyoming to have a facility that helps take care of the people that really need it. And with the money we've been putting in there, it becomes better, and it's improved a lot just in the last 5 or 6 years. Boilers, as I recall, some roof repairs, and so it's a real gem to us, but it's very unique to a city in Wyoming.
We inherited it from the state, right? Did they just give it to us?
Don't recall. I doubt money changed hands, but I don't remember.
I think it was, I think they just abandoned it basically.
Go ahead, Troy.
I'd like to echo that, cause I did a tour, 4 or 5 years ago, and it's amazing. In fact, I would suggest, cause we've done this before, where we've had, a work session essentially morph into a field trip where we all got on a bus. And I don't know if our schedule will allow this still, but, I think it'd be cool for us to all go up there to
Yeah,
a work
it's
session.
worth the
and
tour.
get a chance to see this. It's a major asset of the cities that a lot of people don't know about. And, there are people who really had a chance to turn their lives around up there.
Used to be the children's home.
It was an orphanage, and then it became a treatment center. But the kitchen alone is a story, because I remember looking at it 4 years ago, and it was just, it was unusable, it was decrepit, and now it's this beautiful cafeteria with a state-of-the-art kitchen. It's really, and the city has funded a lot of that through,
Your Honor, to echo Councilman Powell, with the Housing Authority having received the 1 cent funds from you, that is what else is a testament to see what's been done up there, and to showcase not only what the federal funding has helped with, but with the citizens' 1 cent funds.
so, I don't know, I just wrote that out there as an option for us to go up there sometime as a group.
Your Honor and Council, I'd like to invite you to do a work session up there if you'd like to. We can have the professional chefs prepare a treat for you and have a meeting right there.
She's pretty proud.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
It'll be okay.
You wanna consider that?
Would you guys consider doing a work session up there?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Maybe we can look at doing that.
Mr. Mayor will be sure to transport the cashews up and make that happen.
Cameras, everything.
You bet. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Plans RFP.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've talked about this sort of broadly a couple of times now, and we were at the point of wanting to get your direction and insight with regard to the approach you'd like to take for the Plains building, which, as you recall, would include the livery building, which is on that same block, to determine how we would like to get this into the hands of the private sector, this series of buildings, if that's what you would like to do. And so we've given you a couple drafts of what an RFP could look like. You've expressed interest in wanting to read through it and develop some ideas that would that the RFP would contain, and we thought that tonight would be a good night to go through that a little bit and see what direction you had, and we would take that direction and run with it and make what your will is happen. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd take for whatever direction or question you might have.
Any questions for Carter, direction? Yeah.
Wouldn't the easiest thing be to sell it to the highest bidder? And let them do what they want with it. We sold it to one guy over there, he hasn't done a thing with it. And I guess the t-shirt place, are they doing something now? They're trying
Seems
to-
like they're working in there.
They're working on both.
They are?
Charlie, did you
I
have
haven't seen anything on the one on the corner.
I think, my opinion is that we have a responsibility to pay attention to what happens with that space. What if the highest bidder is a porn shop? What would be the
I think it would fall against the sexually oriented business statute ordinance that we've got.
Can't we-
There might be other.
Can't we put a stipulation on it to the highest bidder before they bid on it? That
I'm
we're
just
not
saying, I
selling it
think
to
there
a
should
porn
be
shop?
more to it than the highest bidder. And then we have some responsibility to grade things in terms of, as is done in this proposal, to grade things in terms of what do they add to the community.
So what does Liz wanna do with it? I'm not sure exactly.
Go ahead, Liz.
It's her baby, I'd like to know what she wants to do.
Well, Your Honor, members of council, what I wanted to do was to draw your attention to the revised RFP that's in front of you, and we had gotten input in May at the meeting on some suggestions that some of you as council members gave back to staff. But then in working with Mr. Henley, we did add an entire section on page 2 of this revised version on the economic impact and development. And that piece is very meaty in what we're asking, which is to provide to this body projected, it's at the top of page 3, projected capital investment that the respondents would be providing to all of you. And again, we've got timelines on this, the estimated job creation and the percentage of primary and secondary jobs, so that we know that we've got tax base dollars that both in property as well as sales tax projected wage rates, as well as the annual sales tax revenues if that's applicable. And we really worked from an economic angle on this. That we also, based on comments from your body, also on page 3, looked at if the successful RFP is selected, it would be subject to a restrictive easement, that's midway down, indicating that the building facades or trusses will not be structurally weakened or torn down for a 20-year period. We're trying to put, if you will, a clawback in there. We're looking at the historic preservation for the property, but we're also wanting to make certain something gets done with it and that we don't end up with out-of-state speculators that buy the property for a very, very high price just because they have the money and proceed to sit on it. So we did put the restrictive easement on there. The specific provisions in the proposal related to the economic development will also be incorporated into the restrictive easement. So again, we took input from this body. Mr. Henley was outstanding to work through on the legal components related to state statute. So what does Liz want to do with it? I do believe that there is interest. It has come forward on all the properties. The structural assessment that you had commissioned back in February has been requested. I've got it all tacked up there, but has been requested by many interested folks just to see. So we've made it available for parties to take a peek at it. But again, we're not rushing on this, but I do think that there is interest out there, and it would behoove us to possibly see if we can get the economic components addressed in this particular RFP that we have not done in the past. And we again tie that into the submission of the proposals as well as the evaluation.
Do we have
Hold on one second, Dallas. I got Bob and Shirley. And then-
Excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things that I can tell you the people in OYD were very interested in. And these are the OYD committee, I guess, if you will. These are the people that have been putting the money in OYD. Granted, we put a lot of money, city's money, in Davis Street Station, but everything else down there has essentially been done by the individuals owning properties. And you can see the improvements over the last 3 years. And so the OYD committee had, still want to incorporate mixed use, which is what we started out with the OYD. That was one of the things we wanted to do. The other thing was historic preservation to a certain degree, whatever we can do. And then the ability to begin the project within a certain timeline. I realized the previous ones we sold, that was done, we did it pretty quickly. And with this one, I noticed we've got a 90-day window to submit. So that gives people time to arrange financing, get some ideas together and come back to us. And then I think we've got to start within 30 days after that. Is that a fair statement?
Your Honor, yes.
There's also a typo on page 7. We've forgotten a word. Very top line. City's required by law to disclose as confidential information. Insert the word information. Yeah, it's top of page 7. But anyway, looks good. I think this is kind of accomplishes what we set out to do. And we still have control. So
Got Charlie, Dallas, and Jesse.
So as I read this, there's a real, this thing really boils down to what's on page 28, where you have the general criteria for evaluating proposals. And I agree with you, 50% is your judgment call as to how well does this conform to the master plan and the land use plan, which to me is appropriate, so that we're not just going with the highest bidder, we're looking at how does this fit in the grand scheme of things. My concern is staff is going to basically score these things based on these criteria and then come to us with a recommendation. At that point, does council have the authority at that point to pick someone else? And how would you pick someone else that doesn't have the highest score? Or do we end up rubber stamping the decision by the group that does the scoring?
Your Honor, I believe there will be the flexibility to have you discuss this as a body. or have a representative, obviously, on the selection committee too. Or discuss it in a work session, all of them.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, the way this is set up, it would come to us after all the analysis was done with a recommendation based on the scoring, if I'm reading it correctly.
Your Honor, staff was gonna do some of that work, but you have all the ability to have the raw data sent to you if you wanna do that.
And we could rescore it, I guess, rescore all the proposals if we wanted to
You have
do
before.
that.
Did you have something really quick?
I can wait.
Oh, okay. I got Dallas, Jesse, and then Chris.
So I know some people are looking for a site for an 80-unit hotel. They need an acre, 1.6 acres. What do we have that qualifies for that? Anything downtown?
Your Honor, members of council, yes.
Or is it, what's coming to your mind?
The source gas site would be one location.
Of course, what they want is like some other people who want to build facilities in Casper, they want a deal on the land, I would think.
And Your Honor, members of council, we have not been able to honor that by statute. That's been proposed before up by the event center. On the land, particularly between the Trails Center and the event center itself.
Is there
For
a-
not for free land.
is there an appraisal on that property you're talking about?
Which one, Your
The
Honor?
source gas.
Your Honor, that would probably be a 2016.
Okay.
2016, for $1,187,750.
For the 1 point, how much land is actually there?
Almost 3 acres, Your Honor.
2.74.
Where is the
if I
source
recall.
gas?
They need an acre 6, I think.
It's
for
right
an
across
80.
from Blowdorns.
The old code.
They say they need an acre 6
Isn't
for
that a problem
80
with the
acre.
OID code?
So you could sell them part of it.
You could.
Yeah, there's the corner of Poplar and,
I think you can.
and
Yeah.
Collins.
Midwest,
There's,
Spruce,
yeah,
and Walnut.
Midwest, there's two spots there that could happen.
Okay.
Pursuant to that line of discussion, Councilman Walsh asked if that's a problem with the form-based code to have a facility of that nature in that area, hotel.
Your Honor, members of council, with the, we would need to look at the layer that identifies that it's a neighborhood mixed use versus an entertainment use. So we would need to, I don't have that committed to memory.
So we'll look into that
In
and
the master
try to
plan.
find out for sure.
Jesse, and then Chris.
With the 90-day proposal or time frame, I don't think that would really help if people are trying to secure financing. Talking to investors and people that develop businesses 90 days for a concept, sure, not a problem, that's plenty of time. But trying to get that, the financial aspect secured within that window might be cutting it a little close. So I don't want to really hamper anybody with a good idea to not put a bid together if they're working on financing and maybe don't get that 90-day window targeted correctly. And another thing that I'm concerned about that might just slow us down or limit us for the proposed use is I would like to see any and all concepts of what somebody can do with that entire property and not limit it with historic preservation. So I think that's great if they can restore the building. We heard from professionals in the industry on what that would cost. And if we have an entrepreneur that can go in there and completely change it, that enhances our downtown, that brings people down there, or lets people stay down there, that's perhaps a multi-rise condo place where we have people living downtown, that's what's going to increase foot traffic at Tuesday at 6 o'clock downtown, because it doesn't really exist right now. You're not getting that foot traffic, so how can we get more people just hanging out and supporting the businesses in and around there? It's going to be people living there. So I'd like to remove the historic preservation, or at least not have that cut out somebody that's submitting a proposal. It can be a blank canvas, or it can be something that, hey, I am going to restore should be an option of somebody that can completely restructure the entire block.
So you wanna wipe that out of it?
Maybe not even wipe it out, or just add that as not a goal, but an alternative. You know, I just don't want somebody that has a good idea in mind, to just pass this along, or move it to the side. So if we did approach a different organization and said, hey, look, use your contacts, you know, do you have any investors, that would like to use this property? And if so, what is that gonna look like? So, not have financial in there for the 90-day window, just basically accepting concepts, and then allowing people to do whatever it is, and then just hope that we choose something that's gonna be maybe an economic factor component or a housing component to it.
Is that something council could get behind?
I don't think I can do that.
You're up.
We've committed in the OYD as a concept, over 10 years ago, that is one of the primary goals, is some historic preservation. We've been reasonably successful at that in terms of what's transpired already. And I think that's changing the character of the community. I'm not saying you can't build a hotel there. The only thing I can recall in the form-based code, right now, there's a limit of 5 stories. But that's not a significant problem for a hotel business. There's not many 5-story hotels in town right now. So I don't think that's a significant issue. There are other properties that can be done on. In terms of the 90 days, I still have a problem with that, but I could live with 120 days. I mean, that's 4 months. So I could live with 120 days if. Would that be something you'd support, 120 days?
Well, with financing, you know, I heard numbers around 160, if we want to make sure that they have the money, to put this to fruition, so. If we just wanna look at concepts, say, hey, here's the concept, here's where we're driving it, and then accept bids from there, another 90 days within there, or within that window, so
So you're
basically
talking
concepts,
negotiate, you're saying
let
give
everybody
them
know.
90 days for concepts and then negotiate the financing time in addition to that?
Right, or put it out again for RFP where council says, this is what we'd like to see, who else can do something, similar, and then at that point, put that financial component together and see who's the highest bidder.
Liz, is that something that has been done before or could be done?
Your Honor, I do believe, and I like how you're talking on this, but once these folks come forward with their concepts and it's public, I don't know if they're gonna feel comfortable sharing their dream concept that we like, you like, and saying, we like this idea, but we wanna see who can get out there and get the best financing on it, and potentially trump the young entrepreneur that came up with the idea. Because we do all this in open session, per your wish. I don't know if it's executive level, because it's property disposition, if we would have any flexibility with statute, with property disposition to do the concept proponent in an executive session, and I would have to defer to our city attorney on that. That is my only concern, given some of the visions that the entrepreneurs have shared, and they could be at all different levels, experienced or brand new, and that's the only concern I have, as to whether they'd wanna do that and then have us come back and say, we love that idea, but who can do it the best? That's the gap.
Another way to go about that, and I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry. We have, on a number of contracts the city has done, and in the construction business, it's perfectly reasonable to go back and do a value engineering after you've got concepts together. But that's after the bid package has traditionally been awarded.
Okay.
And that's routinely done. And that's a concept that's just kind of an accepted practice in the engineering and construction business. You go back and say, oh, too many dollars, I've got to do something different, and then you go back and do what's commonly known as value engineering, I guess.
So maybe just eliminating that accept whatever concept that we like to see and then see if they can actually
Yep.
put some money towards it.
Yep.
That's the best approach.
Yeah, I got Chris, Charlie, and Dallas. Go ahead, Chris.
So I wanna know how this operates with state statute, particularly where it says accept the highest bidder. And then it does concern me that the 9 of us tell someone how they're gonna build property. It's kinda like Beamer was saying, I'm not gonna tell you where to put the shrubs and beautify something. And I'm not convinced that old vehicle shop is, once it gets peeled apart, is gonna be that fantastic. I don't know the answer to that. So I guess what are the legalities around it, and I'm not qualified to be a designer and don't wanna be.
John, do you know the legalities behind?
You know, I do. Certainly the easiest way that you talked about, and certainly one way that most properties is disposed of, is through publication, and then you either have an auction or closed seal bids, and that's the way it more often it's done. However, you can do this by utilizing that provision that we used actually to transfer the Ash Street properties, which is Wyoming statute that permits the council to take requests for proposals and to look at those, and then if they find one they like, they basically can bring the people in for a public hearing. They have to note the amount of the appraised value of the property, and then at the public hearing they can vote to accept that or not to accept that. But that has to be tied with economic development of the municipality, and that's your constraint. And so that's why I think this proposal has to be changed and needed to be changed, and we really need to look at that. And I think Councilman Walsh concerns about maybe we're looking too much with those guidelines and we're trying to tie ourselves down. I think we're sending out two messages there. I think probably it would be better to have a clear message and a more streamlined message that we're looking at the economic development, but that this is within the YD area, and you're going to have to comply with the zoning requirements of that, along with any concerns we have with historic things if you want to maintain the facades or the truss. So it can be done, and it's just a matter of how you want to structure it, but you are constrained by, you're not going to take the highest bid. You've got to look, at least in our minds, with the economic development for the municipality.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Would economic development count for housing? Would that be considered?
John, do you know?
I think you've got to make your case in your record when we come to it. So when we have the public hearing, if you were to get that far, you would present the information about that, and they have the additional people living down there and the businesses that may spring up because you have the additional people living down there. So I think you're going to have a certain amount of discretion there, but it has to be rationally based.
Great, thanks.
You want to say something?
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Henley, if I understand you correctly, then that approach allows the council to have the greatest amount of flexibility without necessarily being relegated to adopting only the highest bidder regardless of what that purpose and use might be afterwards.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Let's have Charlie and then Dallas and Bob.
Just my opinion that, you know, as the 9 electeds, we have a responsibility to make decisions that we think are in the long-term best interests of the community. And they're not easy decisions, but I think we are the ones who should look at this property and look at the proposals and make sure that we have given people all the time they need to put on their thinking caps and come up with their best ideas and make those decisions. And I hope that we can do that in a way that gives us maximum flexibility so that we can look at the land use plan and try to decide this is the plan that we think will have the best impact for the most people and have the greatest economic value long-term for the community. So I like the RFP. because it allows for that. And I agree with Jesse that we wanna create an atmosphere where the maximum number of people can make proposals that, may be outside of the box, maybe things we won't even anticipate. But make sure that we give people enough time to, think this through and come up with their best proposals. And I think it's our job to decide what should happen there. And so I am against the whole notion of highest bidder. I think we have a responsibility to look at these proposals.
Dallas, Bob, and Kenny.
Something tells me that it would be a good idea to have a public hearing on this before we go off into this. Like Blue Yonder, because truthfully, and with all due respect to everybody here, I don't think anybody in here sitting at this table knows a thing about development that requires 7 and 8 figure money. And most of the people that I know that do, and I don't either. I'm with you. I'm like Chris. I don't know enough about it. I do know people who do know a lot about it, and they're not going to put 7 and 8 figure money in there with a whole bunch of hooks from 9 people who don't know what they're doing, generally speaking, about these developments. I do understand the concept and what you want to accomplish down there, but if you're going to accomplish something that's more than what we've done so far, which so far I haven't seen anything done, I think it's going to be done, hopefully. But the more complicated you make it, the less likely anybody, they're just gonna say, we're not gonna throw our money there. They're not gonna risk their money and then have 9 people from the city council trying to tell them how to build something or how to keep some old building up that maybe should be torn down. I don't know whether it should or shouldn't be torn down. I just don't know enough about it. But I think that if we have a public hearing first, invite people down, you'll certainly hear what the community has to say. And I'm thinking the community, from what I've heard in the past, Charlie, want to maintain some of these old buildings. Now, that's a great thing, but the city isn't gonna be the one paying for it.
So Dallas, what's your hope by having
My whole idea would be to get more information from our citizenry, and perhaps to get a consultant in here who has put these big projects together, and I think Liz knows a lot about it, but I don't know that she's ever invested 7 or 8 figure money of her own in these things either. So I would want to hear what a couple of these people might be telling me, because I can't vote. I can't vote on this. The easiest thing for me to vote on, and what I hear a lot of people telling me, is we're not in the real estate business, and we shouldn't be telling anybody how to do this. We should just sell it and move on about our business. But I understand the concept, and I like what's happened in the OYD and all of the stuff that's been done so far. But I can tell you right now, with all these stipulations, people are going to be a lot older before anything gets done.
Is there
But I'd like to have a public hearing.
anybody else on the council want a public hearing over this?
Mr. Mayor, if I could interject real quick. Members of the council can correct me here, but I checked with the city clerk, and I think we may have already had a public hearing on this.
April 17th.
April
Oh.
17th.
Yeah.
So we would actually be talking about an additional public hearing prior to releasing an RFP. Is that what I'm understanding, Council?
I think the more refined you get this, and my public hearing is, we want to hear from people what they want to do, but in the meantime, you're looking at millions of dollars. And the people I know aren't going to let us tell them how to spend their millions of dollars. They're just not going to do it. It isn't worth it to them, because we don't know enough about it. And I wouldn't take advice from any city council I know if I was coming in and wanted to build some big project. I'd want to come in and tell the city council what I wanted to do, and here's how I want to do it, and if you want me to buy the property, I'll be happy to do it, but here's what I need you to approve. But I wouldn't think they would want to flop that around where now we're gonna sit here and tell them different things about their $20 million or $10 million or whatever it ends up being. At least that's what some of them have told me, that do this kind of stuff.
So Dallas has asked for a public hearing on this. I don't know if that's something the council wants to, an additional one.
I know we don't like public hearings here, but we should allow them.
So I've got Bob, Jesse, Chris, and Bob, Keneen, Jesse, and Chris.
I just want to speak on this topic,
Yeah, go ahead.
actually. So, Dallas, if we just removed the requirements that you see on page 3, also page 24, of it saying it is also suggested that proposals, or it is also suggested that proposals also, and then it goes into a few bulleted items, and then 2 paragraphs up after that. If we just remove that, and then instead of goals on the previous page that says the goal is historic preservation, remove that and say it's a priority, and then somewhere interject that you could do whatever you want with it, but we want to see that proposal. So then at that point, we could save ourselves the time of a public hearing, and we're essentially not telling them, you know, that you have to keep these trusts available or whatever for a 20-year period. Just leaving it wide open, basically.
Personally, I think it needs to be wide open, but I don't think anybody here is gonna pass that. And I don't think you're ever gonna really get further than people who want cupcake shops and t-shirt shops and stuff like that. I don't think you're gonna get somebody who will build a hotel if you're gonna try to tell them what kind of hotel to build. I just don't think you're gonna do it.
Right, but if you remove that restrictive language, then it's wide open, right? So what else do we need to do after that?
I think it would be nice to know if there's people interested first, that have money, that are willing to do something. And then ask them what, and I think we should tell them, if we want historic preservation, we should say this is what we'd like to see happen. And then see if you have anybody that's willing to make a bid on the property. But we need to make sure really what the citizens think we should do with it. I mean, they own it, don't they? And I'm not, I like public hearings because they come down here every now and then, you get some pretty good nuggets from it. And then they feel like they're a part of the community and they've had a say-so and they're not quite as upset with us. And I think we can work all that in there.
This is my subject.
The way that.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought I was next.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob. Oh, yeah, I would just offer a couple of things. We first of all have the ability to reject any and all bids. That's already built in there. If we don't like what we see when we get RFPs, we just say, no, we're starting over. And we have that option. But in lieu of that, we've got some pretty good success stories down there now. We've got Rocca's, Art 321, Urban Bottle, Ad Bay, and the insurance office is beside them. Not in that area, we've got Party Animals, so you've seen what can be done with an old building. We've got 2 projects in progress right now. They're working on them right now. So that's a total of 7 projects that we've got either completed or in progress, plus what they've done downtown at the corner of Poplar or Center and Collins. We know what the potentials are for some of those buildings. So our track record is pretty good, but we still have the option when we get out and look at these proposals that we say, this isn't what we had in mind, sorry. So we start over at that point. But to do a 2-stage process, I think that makes the contractor lay their cards on the table and say, look, I don't want everybody stealing my ideas. And I think that's, from a business standpoint, unethical.
But could you sit there, Bob, and tell me right now what you'd really like to see down there?
I
Tell me
could.
a building and a business you'd like to see down there.
I could draw you, matter of fact, I've drawn pictures of it.
Just give me one from my mind, if you could.
Well,
Because I don't know
well,
what.
in the old, where the car dealership was, I
Yeah.
see that as being an enclosed little mall with garage doors in front of it, and I've told a number of people of that. You use it all year round, you put infrared heat in there, you put tables in there, people can bring their carts in there and sell things, and in the back where the garage actually was, where the business was and the business offices were, that's where you sell that piece of property to use in conjunction with that. The other 2 could be relatively small indoor malls where you have the potential for 2 2,400 square foot restaurants or 2 2,400 square foot, roughly 2,400 square foot office buildings. Or for that matter, you could put apartments in there. Not a lot, but you could put some there. So there's, I'm not an architect, but it's easy to look at that and say, wow, this could really be cool.
But then what I wonder, if the guy that has the money to do that can see a return on it, and what you tell me, fine, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's what developers do.
But the issue is that then you have to take a look. I'll go ask John Johnson if he thinks a 2,400 square foot restaurant would do anything down there. So far, he doesn't want to put one down there for various reasons, which he's told me, but he may have changed his mind.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you whether a 2,400 square
Well,
foot
I'm not saying
restaurant will
it has
work
to
or
be
not.
2,400, it could be 1,200.
Well, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they might want 8,000 feet for all I
Yeah.
know. But, so that's up to the people that have this kind of money, that your dream may not be their dream, and that's all I'm saying. But hey, if you wanna, if it takes years, I guess it takes years.
No.
But I do appreciate you all wanting to develop this the way it's been going, and it'd be nice if somebody, but you want somebody else to finance it. So when you want other people to finance it, they just may not have the same ideas we do.
That's right.
And so if somebody, you know, and I don't even, do we have a current appraisal on that property?
Your Honor, no. That's one of the questions for tonight.
And that's another thing that that we face with the public, paid $3 million for it, and then what is it all gonna sell for ultimately? Will we even get our money back, which I'm guessing we're not going to. But that's another political matter we have to deal with, in addition to other financing problems we have going on right now. I'd like to see it sold to a good prominent developer who knows what they're doing, and gives us a check and tells us, here's what I'm gonna do because it's my money and this is what I wanna do. I'm gonna guess you'll get a pretty good project, but it's all conjecture at this point to me.
Mr.
Because
Mayor,
we're the idea people, but we don't have the money.
with regard to the statement Councilman Laird made about getting money back on an appraisal that took place leading to the sale or the purchase, please keep in mind as a group that you have carved out portions of that land purchase for public parking. And so that's gonna work against the idea of recovering that full amount of $3 million. And I just wanna remind you of that, so that as you're thinking about this and you're talking about proposals and possibilities and that kind of thing, that really should be in your mind so that you know, yes, indeed, we are retaining portions of the original property that you purchased for public parking in particular. And we confirmed that direction, I want to say back in February, March, or whatever, to make sure that was still consistent with what you wanted to do. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Canine, Chris, Charlie.
When we did the public hearing, there's part of me that wants to say it was 99% preserve that property, people speaking in favor of preserving the structure. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so.
So I'm inclined to, we've had the public hearing, they wanted to preserve it, so that's where I'd stand on that. Timing wise, they'll have a new council soon, maybe they'll have a different vision, so if you push the time out, it might not be such a bad idea.
Chris.
Several months ago, this was gonna be a parking lot. And then the other buildings were discovered inside that. Sounds to me like this needs to be redrafted to tailor economic development instead of anything else. When we start this process, let's say we started this process tonight. They're not gonna begin construction in the middle of winter. This doesn't happen until next summer. And we wanna make sure a lot of the issues that we had, concerns that were brought to me when we sold the other the properties on Ash Street, was the time frame involved for financing, design, and getting all that into the city. So we hamstrung ourselves on that. And Bob, I like your idea, but there's no way in the world that I can sit back and tell someone, this is how you're gonna spend your money. I have a vision, this is, spend it my way. and that's what we're doing. I have a problem with that. If it's preserve the integrity of the historic buildings, okay, I think I would like to do that. It seems like Casper has a tendency of knocking down everything in its past. I'm glad we've got the old city garage. That's certainly got some character. I don't know if once they start doing construction on these things, if we're hamstringing people because we say you can't knock it down and it's decrepit. Now the cost is twice what the initial one was, and it's not worth doing. So I'm torn on it. I don't want to tell people how to spend their money. I guess I'm not opposed to saying, and proper wording would have to be put out there, if at all possible, maintain the historical integrity of the building, and give people time to put together a package and financing and funding that they need. I don't know what any of that is. I know the last one, I heard a lot of complaints that it was too short.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I just think we need to think long-term, and to me, the RFP doesn't try to tell people what to do or how to do it. I agree with Jesse that we should be open to the possibility, just the possibility, that somebody comes with a proposal to us that does not include preservation. So that but we say that we would like that as a preference, but we're not going to rule out, because we don't know. And I agree with you, Chris. I don't think we should even speculate as to what we think should be there, because it doesn't matter until we see the proposals. And because none of us are going to, and I'm not a developer. I don't know what it takes. I don't know how to set these timelines either. All I know is that last time, the timelines were way too short for someone with a big vision. And I was one of the dissenting voices on that, because I thought we should have given more time for a much bigger proposal to develop. And there was no way that it could happen in that time frame. And so I want to make sure that if there are people with some ideas that are big ideas, that we don't adopt something where they say, well, that just doesn't give me the chance to do that, or they're never going to listen to me because my proposal doesn't include maintaining that building. I want to be sure that we get all the proposals that we can get, and that people who have significant funds and could do something big feel like they have a shot at this, and they have enough time to do it right. Because whatever we decide to do, people are going to have to live with for a long, long time. Or whatever we decide not to do.
Mike and then Dallas.
I agree with everything that Charlie just said. And, I note in this RFP, it sets these things as goals. It doesn't set them as requirements. It just says these are some goals. And I think that that's nice to say, well, these are some goals. These are some things that we would like to see happen. I hate to be critical, but I have to really agree with what Councilman Powell said. Frankly, when you guys sold that property on Ash Street, I was amazed. I was shocked. I thought that was, I'm going to have to say, I think that's one of the worst decisions that I've ever seen a council make, to parcel that up and cut that up that way. I couldn't believe it when that was done. But I didn't hear I wasn't in on all the deliberations, and I don't know what all went into that. But just from sitting on the sidelines, and I have to really agree with Charlie when he says, let's send this out. Those are goals. We're not saying this is what's required that you're going to have to do. But let's see what people say, and we can accept them, reject them, go back to the drawing boards.
Dallas.
It's been very confusing, at least since I've been on the council, and these couple people here have worked on the council, and not including the people that work for the city, have been looking at this project and the idea of it for years. And that's okay with me. Take more years if you want. I just think that the idea, Chris said, was going to be a parking lot once. Well, I remember when, and I was for the idea, a hotel and a convention center. And that's still probably the best idea, truthfully. But when Kevin Hawley and, the people he has come up here and give us, their vision about it, I tend to buy into it. I think it's a good idea, right now. We had a contract, we were supposed to have the, Plains building torn down by March. It's in a contract, it's supposed to be torn down, didn't get torn down, cause everything changed. Fine with me. But if you really want to do the downtown and have it make money, you gotta have a hotel, and then the conference center is a deal where they want the city to pay for the conference center, because conference centers don't make money. What makes the money is the people who come to the conference and spend money in the city and create the foot traffic, which is kind of the theory about running a business up on the hill that loses $1.4 million every year. You're hoping that the city people that we represent are making money on it, and we're using their tax dollars to sustain it. So when I hear little shops, no, that's all quaint and cool, you know. I like to go down to Santa Fe, but this isn't Santa Fe. And I do know some people who want to build a 80-room hotel that do not want to build a conference center. And I don't know that they will look at Casper, because they're the kind of people that don't want somebody telling them how to do something if they're gonna put the money in. So I've heard a whole bunch of great ideas, and I just wish you good luck. I'm gonna be here 6 more months. I would like to be of some help. I'm not gonna get in anybody's way about how they wanna do it. I do feel that public input is really important. The more I've been on this council, the more I see how important that is, and how some people really don't wanna do that. But I think that this council ought to look at that and do that every chance they get.
Just, can I comment on the public hearing? I'm more than happy to hear what the public has to say. The last time we did this, people came forward and said, well, I think you should build a library. You should build this, you should build that. And they were all great ideas, with no concept of where that money would come from or how it would happen. And so I think we might get some input, but if we're going to sell this, and I think we should and we have to, it's gonna be the private developer that's going to say, this is what I think I can make money on.
My point exactly.
And members of the public, you know, this should not be publicly funded. And so members of the public can give us guidance as to how to spend the money that we have collected, but we have no business, based on public input, saying, well, now that we've had this public input, it should be this. It should be what the developer says they can do, and we're choosing from that plan, saying that's the one that we think will benefit the community. But it's the private developer that's gonna come up with the idea, not somebody that just comes to the podium and says, I think you guys should do this.
And I agree with that. I
Yeah,
just
you
need to
bet.
answer one thing you brought up. So the private developers are out there. So this gets back to a simple deal. Cause I use what you say, if I take what I like that you said, and I take what Bob said that I like, which is, we can turn down any bid that comes in. Put it out for bid. Say, here's what we'd really like to see. Let's see who the takers are. Let's see who shows up with the money. And if we don't like it, vote them all down.
That's what an
That's what
RFP
this
does.
is.
Well,
That's exactly what it does.
but then do that.
Yeah.
Put
And I'm okay, if
put it up for
we
sale
wanna change that to
tomorrow.
120 days, what do you guys think of that? I don't think.
And make it more flexible, as Jesse suggested. Sorry. Jim.
No, you're good.
I just say,
But I think-
we'll work with whoever comes in. Find out what it's worth, cause that's how we have to start. Put it out there for sale, and say, here's what we'd really like to see, here's what our public would like to see. But we know it's your money, and Charlie just said it. You get to decide what you want. If you wanna buy it and put a parking lot there, and you pay us the money, go ahead. If
That's
you
not
wanna
what I'm saying.
No, I know, but what you said is if the developer spends his money the way he wants, that includes that. So you really don't want the developer to do it the way he wants. So what you do is you get all these people coming in with their bids, saying what they wanna do, and then if they get the top bid, sell it to them if they're building what you like. But the way it's going now, it's as crazy as that ordinance with the food trucks. It just keeps going on and on and on because nobody has a concept. Our business here statutorily is to sell that property for our best dollar. And now if we have a little bit of control from these statutes, as John Henley's explained, I'm good with that. But it finally boils down to the dude who writes the check gets to say what he's gonna do with that property, ultimately.
We've got 7 dudes that have already written checks, so our success rate is pretty good, guys.
I know, but you're talking about now a project that's gonna use 30,000 square feet, and people that,
At the
I don't
tank
know.
projects, I'm sorry, we've got the garage project that's already going too. So it's 8 of them.
Yeah, and
that are
no, I
underway.
agree with that. I'm just saying this piece of property now, as I said here, I don't even know what it's worth. I don't even know what kind of money we're talking about. Do you have any idea what it might come in at, just generally?
That might not even be a good idea to put out there.
Thank you. That's good.
We're
So-
a city, people are entitled to know what our stuff's worth. I mean,
So we got 2 more people want to comment or have questions. I know we probably need to start moving forward because we've been on this subject for quite a while, and just maybe we can start giving some direction on that. So, Chris and Mike.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way as you. I want to resolve this. So I think the way to resolve this is we need to add some adjustments to the RFP, make sure it matches the intent of economic development in order to follow state statute. In the event that we might not accept the highest bid, extend the timelines for funding and design proposal. Make sure that our ideas in there are in the form of goals, preferences instead of requirements. Have that RFP presented to us at a future work session soon, and then we can make a decision on it, or we can sit here and pound the table on that.
Agreed.
No, I'm good with that.
Yeah, Chris was way more eloquent about this than I was gonna be.
Said no one ever about me.
But one specific thing that, you know, like looking at this, I forget which, it's on page 24. I think this is part of what Jesse said. It says the successful RFP will be subject to a restrictive easement, blah, blah, blah. I think a specific change that I would suggest would be something in the nature of the council would like to see the buildings be preserved. However, we're open to, you know, broader, larger use concepts. If somebody came in and said, we want to build a 20-story Hilton hotel, but we want you to abandon the David Street Station and all the rest of that, and we'll pay you a huge amount of money for all of that, I think we would be fools not to say, hey, okay, you know. But I don't think that's gonna
thank
happen.
God that won't happen and you won't get lynched.
Yeah, but,
Right.
but you understand my point being that I think we need to have something in there that we are open to someone coming in with a big grand idea, if that's what they wanna do and it works, hey.
But just a comment, Mr. Mayor. I'm told, don't know if it's true or not, that when you want to do preservations of old buildings, it costs up to 2.5 times more than if you just tear it down and build a new conventional, functional building. And all you gotta do is ask any state legislator, we know what's happened at the Capitol building. Now, I can understand why they renovated that, but they could have built a beautiful, huge new Capitol building for less money than what they're paying to renovate an old building that you've gotta go into the bowels and deal with asbestos and old pipes and lead and everything else. So a lot of these guys, and you know, different architects have looked at that down there that don't think that it's capable of really sustaining a huge remodel without tearing a lot of that stuff out of there. Other people said maybe you can do it. I don't know what the truth of that is, but if I was writing my check for it, I would wanna know, and I would know when I came in here, what these kind of things cost. It's a wonderful idea to rebuild old buildings, but I'm telling you, they're expensive. I've got one of them. I can tell you all about how you have to do different things to try to keep what you want, look in there, as opposed to scraping it down and building a new one.
Jesse, and then we'll take a.
I just want to
give
clarify,
direction.
so what Chris suggested is just, I guess, trying to broaden the proposal itself. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, I would suggest taking all the wheels and shells on the different things and put it's, you know, our goal or it's our desire to do this wherever feasible, and then opening up a timeline, which I'm not even qualified to tell you how to get $1 million loan on something, what that takes, what would be reasonable for that. But I believe we were too short on the last
$5
one.
million in collateral.
So you think, you had a good point of, you know, nobody's going to be breaking ground this year. It's already gonna be 90 days at best from now. So if we made it till next year, does that sound reasonable?
No, 120 days is fine. I disagree with it, you can't get financing in 120 days.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfectly reasonable number. How long does it take
have
you
a
to financing on
design,
a house?
And have an architecture, get a design, and understand.
No, we're
that.
talking
We're not talking about a
proposals.
house though, Bob. for
There's a
getting
difference
financing.
between having engineered drawings and a proposal. A proposal is basically looking at some conceptual pictures. There's not structural stuff done, just as a state office building right now. Engineering drawings are just starting on that. They gave us pictures of what it was gonna look like, told us where it was gonna be. We have seen architectural pictures, if you will, but the engineering work is just starting.
Bob, I agree. I want you to do it your way. It may work. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Let's
I'm just
pick a
saying
way.
our success rate
So,
is
but
pretty
let's
good.
just pick a way. Let's pick your way. I'm happy. I'll pick any way you guys want me to pick. I'll pick Liz's way. I think she knows more about it than we do anyway. So let's just pick a way and see what happens.
But
You and
let's
I won't
let-
be here, Jesse, when they finally get it done. But I would at least like to say, we started something and set around here and nobody gets anywhere. So pick a way. I don't care.
Yeah, we started the
I'm in.
OID over 10 years ago.
I put thumbs up of what you wanna do here. You know more about it than I do, cause you've been at it longer.
Go ahead, Charlie.
What's the hurry?
I don't know if there is one.
I mean, this is a decision that, again, people are gonna live with for the next 50 years. Why set any kind of a time frame that's going to eliminate any possibility? I mean, I wanna make sure, what if somebody has no idea, has not even been thinking about this, and the word starts to percolate through the community that this RFP is out, and they, you know, gradually come to a awareness that the RFP is there, and they start thinking about something, and they start talking with some friends, and they start coming up with some ideas, and it's 60 days into the 120 days before they come to the realization that, hey, maybe I should put a proposal in. And then, they've got a really cool idea. And they start gradually putting together a financing package. But they got a late start because they weren't ready to launch day one.
So what's the number?
I don't know, I just wanna make sure it's a long enough number that we get maximum
what you
number
wanna
of
do.
possibilities. And I don't know what that is, cause I'm not a developer.
Charlie, why don't you do what you wanted to vote for to begin with? Which was you wanted to be, you voted to build the hotel and the convention center, and you wanted to continue this on. Everybody wanted to do it, but it got changed and we sold some property. That's all been done. But Kevin Hawley comes up here and what does he say? Hotel and convention center.
Can we just give thumbs?
But-
This is not.
I just like
Yeah,
Chris's
we're
proposal,
going, we're
and
we're
I'm
going around,
fine
in-
with that.
we're going around in circles, you guys.
But I don't know what the number should be, as far as the number.
Chris, and then go ahead, Carter. Go ahead, Chris.
Let's adjust the RFP and add a reasonable number to that. Now, what's that gonna be? Let's not argue about it anymore. What is it, 6 months?
Why do we need a number?
Well, because it
They
has to
can
have
come
a
in and tell
closing
us
date
the
if you're
number.
gonna put out an RFP.
Let them
160
come in and
days,
tell us the
160
number.
days. Is that bet, Jesse, you feel better with
160
160 days?
I like it.
160.
160.
Let's go with that.
I'm good with that.
We're there.
Go ahead, Carter.
A couple questions that I haven't heard addressed yet. I'm sensing some disappointment with regard to the progress that the properties we've sold has not made. And so my question is really probably for the attorney, do we have any ability to require some sort of timeline with regard to construction once we sell it? And then I guess the second part of my question is, what if they say, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, we're gonna build this, we're gonna build that, and we're gonna do it by such and such a time frame, and then they sell it to some other use that isn't even consistent with what the council originally awarded the transaction for? What options do we have with those two situations?
The options that we have, I think, are a little bit limited, but we put that in here, and those were the restrictions that we put on the property.
Stuff we've already sold, John, he's talking about.
Well, those we
Well,
don't.
and for what we may be in the
Because
plan.
they can sell it and do whatever they want with it, and
Those
that's
we
what I
don't.
think's gonna happen.
They were given a deed, so we don't have any restrictions. On this one, though, we have the option, if you want to, and we put in there for 20 years, that you have to maintain this, but it could be a lesser period of time. Basically, put some restrictions that would follow that property, if you wish, or you put some restrictions that this has to happen within a certain period of time, or there's a penalty phase and the property gets reconveyed back to the city. I mean, there are options.
Okay. So I guess, members of the council, Your Honor, I'd recommend that you give that some serious consideration, because indeed, if we don't, and the property goes, and they sell it, then the identity of what the original intent was of this body, albeit very, very clear at the time, and those kinds of things may be lost. And then you may not retain any of the original intent that you originally made the transaction or the deal or whatever precipitated on. So if it's okay with the council, maybe we can give you some of that language, or maybe we need to give that additional thought perhaps. But if we can get that kind of
I don't think you
direction.
can do anything about the two people who bought property already.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just
Moving
suggesting for
forward.
the planes.
But between those two, remember the other thing that we did? We gave Phil Schmidt 18 parking places for 20 years in there, in the middle of all that stuff. So I don't know how people, and this is what Mike was complaining about. You got his use of 15 or 16 parking places for 20 years. And then you've sold that other property that's right in the middle of that's next on each side to that livery stable. And then we've got the Plains, which is also connected to the old garage. So somebody has got to be very innovative about what they're doing over there.
I think that's what we're trying to tailor right here, how we could rehash old mistakes all night long.
Throw it out and let the guy with the checkbook have it. And let him worry about it.
Let's move
And
on.
we'll go on about how we're gonna deal with the state on the 2.3 million they screwed us out of.
So, do you have enough direction, you feel?
Actually, I need to just clarify just a couple things to make sure we're very good with direction. So if those two things are fine, we'll look at language there for the RFP. I would suggest for a public hearing, maybe the best time to time a public hearing would be when you actually have proposals, and the public is to hear those proposals, and then they can give you feedback on what those proposals would do
That's a good idea.
to the character of our community. Prior to that, I think would probably,
Yeah,
okay,
like-
perfect.
Good idea.
And then the only other thing, let's see. Okay, so we did determine that historic preservation as an idea or an option is where we want to go, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm good, ladies and gentlemen, for direction.
And
A
Mike's
goal, but
suggestion
not a requirement.
Right.
about the 20-year easement, that would be a we might or we may? Because right now it says we shall.
We would prefer this, but we're open to hearing other proposals.
Okay.
So open platform, get proposals on an economic development basis, allow you the opportunity to see the broad spectrum of what possibly could be available, get public input, decide from there. Can we go forward with an appraisal?
Yeah, I agree with that. One quick one on page 5, we've asked for 10 copies. Since we've slowed the process down, copies could be electronic. I mean, to put together a book like that, it's a couple $100.
Yep, no problem.
So we could
Wait a
live with
minute,
that.
I think Liz wants.
Maybe
No,
3
that's
copies?
fine.
3 copies and electronic versions?
So you all would get electronic?
Yeah.
We had asked for hard copies for your sake.
Was that for us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, electronic's fine, okay.
So can we move forward with an appraisal then? Because that is a part that's required.
I really like that word move forward. Let's do that.
We're on.
Well, then maybe then, in the spirit of moving forward, we can
Well, if
prepare.
you're gonna put it up, because what I didn't like about this last deal is you get an appraisal and then you don't sell it for 8 months and the appraisal isn't valid. It's
But-
valid, but it's not, it's not up to date in what it should be when you sell the property.
The property values are going up down there.
Well, whatever they do, yeah.
Well, how else do we make an evaluation if we don't
You,
have
you
an
do an
We had to have
appraisal
an
and you
appraisal.
just reevaluate it, and it's whatever the appraisal is at the time the sale occurs. And the guy comes in and amends it for another $10,000.
So what I would propose that we do is get the appraisal,
Yes, we won't do that.
make sure you guys have it, bring an RFP for formal declaration at the floor, and we are rocking and rolling. That good?
Put it out for bid for a hotel and a conference
Yes,
center.
Thank you, ladies and
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Liz.
Thank you very
I
much.
have one little
Oh,
update,
yes.
Your Honor.
Okay.
Just as an update on the two properties that you all have been referring to, Councilman Hopkins is part of the ARC Review Committee. And both owners have been coming forward to the Architect Review Committee. You granted them the easements for their electrical needs through council. They're working with Rocky Mountain Power to get the transformers that they need, specifically with the screen printing that needs excessive power for that business. But also with the residential at the Milo's site in addition to the construction office. The Milo's building has pulled the building permit already. We've seen and approved all the design plans for the Milo's piece. So they are moving forward, and we would anticipate we'll have some elevation renderings that perhaps Councilman Hopkins could share with you as the representative.
Good deal.
So,
Outstanding.
yes, it is moving.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's that word.
Move forward.
Anything for the agenda review?
I got a couple questions. We have, accepting the grant on the big game coalition for Russian olive tree removals. Does that require a match or anything?
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I have Jolene?
No,
respond
no.
to that? Jolene, can you talk to us to that?
Sure. Tell me,
The Russian olive grant that we
$10,000
got through-
for Russian olive removal?
Mm-hmm.
Does that require a match?
No, it does not require a match at all.
However,
Oh.
the quoted cost of the entire project is about 30-some thousand. 10,000 would only cover a portion of that.
Cause you gotta replant, don't you? Is there
No.
replanting costs of whatever you're gonna put in there?
Go ahead.
The entire cost to remove the Russian olives is roughly between $30,000 and $40,000 in that area. That grant will cover part of it. We have a partial grant left over from last year that's moving forward to cover some of that. And then we also have funding from our sponsorship and private funders that it's going to cover.
So it looks like we don't pay anything?
From our budget, the city will probably be putting in non-general funds of about $9,000.
If we want to take on the full scope right away.
Right. What, where's this section gonna be?
This is North Platte Park, and so this is where we worked last year. We're finishing off that stretch, and so we'll have 100% Russian olive removal from basically Lansing all the way over to the pedestrian bridge in North Casper, on that backside, on River left, below the event center.
Okay. I have one other. What is the next one, authorizing a contract, the amount of 104? I just don't know what that is. The environmental consulting and construction.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, a couple quick changes, and then Jolene can give a little more detail. That title, as well as the memo and the request, will actually be a little bit different in that we are not suggesting an agreement with Edge. It would actually be with, tell me the name again?
Golder Associates.
Golder Associates. And Jolene, can you go into a little detail with regard to what that encompasses?
Yes. As you know, we have been trying to complete the river restoration in the First Street Reach for some time. We keep going back and forth with being able to get a permit from the DEQ and the Army Corps. What's holding us up is environmental and mitigation work. So in that stretch, we know that we have pollution, contamination, brownfield area from the old Amoco refinery. In order to move forward, the committee, we believe that we have to get some really good environmental work done with mitigation plans so that we can present our plan to the DEQ to say, we know that this is what we're going to find and this is how we're going to mitigate it. Please give us a permit to construct our river restoration project from Poplar Street to the railroad bridge. We have the money, and we have a little bit of time left to use the money. It's a grant from the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust.
That's just
And
100 grand we're talking
the
about?
104,000 will likely be almost all private funds that have been raised through the Two Fly Foundation and all of our private funding that has gone into this.
100%.
Can be. I mean, we have it gets to be very complicated in that we have varying sources of money. We have grant money, we have private funding, we have a little bit of 1 cent money. We know that in order to move this reach forward, we have to do the environmental work.
And that's, the 104 is that more than consulting, or does that actually do some mitigation or something like that?
It would be some mitigation work, and it would also be construction administration during construction. So we know that when we have a release, we have our environmental group on the ground to address it right here, right now with the mitigation plans that are in place. So it's very comprehensive, from doing the studies that we need to do to developing the comprehensive mitigation plan to actually being on site during construction and doing the mitigation work.
Don't need to dominate the conversation, and this construction will probably be next summer, right?
Our goal is to have the plans done and construct in October of 2019. I hope that doesn't make the paper or the Star Tribune, because we still don't have the plans done yet, and this has been a particularly difficult reach in trying to come to agreement with BP. I don't know how to say that in any other way. It has been, and Bob can talk about it too, but it has been a particularly difficult way, such that we've been working with the Dow, the governor's group, and their statement is, frankly, may I say what their statement is? Their statement is, how long does BP get to hold the city and the state of Wyoming hostage over their pollution that they did many years ago? This reach of the river has always been the most important reach of the river for our committee and for the city. It is the welcome mat into the city. There are plans to put boat launch there so people can go in and fish. We're getting some property on the other side from the Highway Commission where people can fish in there. It is part of the comprehensive land use plan it's part of downtown development. It fits right in with OID. It is a significant piece of where Casper sees economic development going forward. And frankly, it has not been easy to work with BP on this. And so, I'm looking around, because I'm just, our committee has been working very, very hard with BP for 4 years. And so we're choosing to do this to prove to the DEQ and to the Army Corps that we can do this project for the city. We know that Game and Fish is on our side, we know that Army Corps is on our side, but we have to prove to the DEQ that we are not going to send major pollution down the river that BP basically owns.
Okay, thanks.
It's gonna go on for 100 more years.
Jesse.
I was gonna bring up, just for the upcoming work session agenda items, I didn't see, I guess, getting a proposal on what it would look like to get digital water meters and what type of infrastructure that you would have to even be able to, have that as an option to people that would like to have a digital meter.
Could we put that on the work session item?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, we did send some information out several weeks ago,
Okay.
and I I haven't gotten direction to include it in a work session topic.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Gotcha.
if council would like to have that come forward, we certainly can.
Okay.
Is council okay with having, Jesse, do you want to tell, just really quickly?
Yeah, better tell me what that is.
Okay.
Real quick again.
So, just, new technology, and this is actually something that somebody else brought to my attention that they're more familiar with, but basically they can get a digital meter, and you can have an app available on your phone to look at your water usage. So you remember in 2016, we weren't on council then, but council was getting hammered about, oh, my water bill is astronomical, this is ridiculous, there's something wrong, the city's overcharging us, and it came out to be like 5 cases of that was actually true, and then the rest of the 200 cases of people saying that wasn't true at all. They had either bad toilet seal, the spring on their sprinkler system was broken, they had to get a new one. So basically it came down to, if you could actually see on your phone, you have more visibility of the water usage that you have, you can even shut it off if you're on vacation, just by moving the app. If somebody's using the showers for too long, so if your teenage daughter's in the shower for 35 minutes, you can shut the water off if she's using too much water.
Is that the one that will tell you if you have a leak in your house too?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
a
can
good
see
one.
something going on, or if you're on vacation, you're like, holy cow, somebody's, I have water in my basement's maybe flooding, but it's something that I would like people, if they do want it, they're paying for it, and you can install it, go ahead, by all means. But there's I guess a caveat to that is we might have to update our equipment in order for that to even be available. to
Did
the
we give
public.
those a trial run, Jesse?
I
Didn't
thought
didn't they put those?
commercial properties were, I thought, I don't know if that's true.
What can be done, it's just a matter of the cost, but you can also
I think they
look
did
at
a
your
trial
meter,
run though,
see if
Bob.
it's moving when the
I
water's
thought
off.
they did with commercial, but ours residential.
So that would mean we'd have to update our system, which might be, and I thought we had this conversation that we had talked about, that it was more pricey. But maybe we can get some ideas, Carter, I guess, if we do it at a work session, we
Yeah.
can have that conversation
Yeah.
to talk about it and say, hey, this is what it would look like, this is what it would cost us, for us to update our system to include those things. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, because, excuse me for butting in, but it seems like at some point, if you didn't have to have meter readers running around and all that stuff, if somebody could just sit down here in an office and, through automation, go through and check those things, that ultimately that would have the potential of saving money.
Fits very well with small cell technology.
But the cool thing is it tells you if you have a water leak.
Well,
so-
yeah.
Go ahead,
Which
Jesse,
a lot
another
of people
comment.
do.
Yeah, quick
Well,
follow-up, and I may have
having
missed
had
it,
water
and I
leaks.
apologize for being late. With the website improvement that we're doing, does that move us one step closer to perhaps having an app available with that additional service?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, it does. And without Michael here to kind of go through that in a little more
Yeah,
detail,
sorry.
the fact is, yes, that's exactly the aim, indeed.
I saw on there where you can fill out your app for employment.
Yes.
That's what an app is.
That is.
Charlie?
Something else I'd like to see us do at some point in one of our work sessions is get an update on where we are with implementation of the non-motorized transportation plan. Just get a status report on those things that have been done and where we are with prioritization of other parts of the plan, so that it also does not just kind of fade into the ether. So that was an MPO plan that was approved, I think, 3 years ago?
What
4
plan are you
years?
talking about?
The non-motorized transportation plan that MPO put together. And it had to do with a lot of safety improvements, and there were a whole bunch of things in there that were not high cost, high dollar things. It really had to do with just marking sidewalks, marking crossings a little better, but there were other much more expensive parts of it. But I'd just like to see where we are with all of that. Are we still moving forward, and what things have been done, what's next?
Is that code for walking?
Bicycling.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Horses.
Councilman, on the back of
Horses.
your,
What kind of shoes you have?
the back of your grid there, the bike pedestrian plan update.
Oh, okay.
We don't have it docketed yet, but it is on the
Thank you.
outlook, if you will.
Never mind.
It's coming, it's coming.
Do you have anything you wanna give us updates on for the agenda?
As you probably have already noted, we've got July 24th. Should be a pretty engaged discussion. The SRO agreement, I think, will be of interest to you, as will the CATSI route modifications that we've talked about before, and this will be a real specific review in terms of what we think we can do by way of modifications and consolidation. A number of other things that you've talked about are coming up as well throughout the summer, and we've got some work to do by way of docketing other upcoming meetings, obviously, but one of chief concern will be with regard to 1%, which in August you should be able to get quite a bit of information in preparation for the vote in November, as well as rendering decisions from your standpoint as to what you think would be a priority from a project standpoint and an application standpoint, in that you're going to get a bunch of applications saying, hey, here's what we think you ought to do to help our organization with 1 cent money. So that's coming up.
Are you gonna talk at all about this thing with the state on sales tax?
I certainly can. Thank you, Councilman. Your Honor, members of the council, I can tell you we're not making a lot of progress with the state in terms of getting information that would be helpful to the understanding of why we were assessed such a huge amount. I guess the good news would be that where we initially thought we were going to get assessed an amount of $2.3 million, that number has shrank to 1.7. The bad news with that is, when we were initially told that we would be able to work that out over a period of months, it did not happen that way. They're actually going to take it out of our next month's, or I should say the receipt, the check that we're expecting to get any day now. So we have work to do yet to try to challenge that. Mr. Henley's office is looking into things. Mr. Pitlick's office is looking into conversations that we need to have with the Department of Revenue, Mr. Noble's office. I wish I could say that the outlook is strong and positive in getting some reversal, but to be candid, in the times I've seen this before and dealt with this before, we have not had a lot of luck. And so, to be completely honest with you and candid, I'm not incredibly encouraged by what we've seen in the past, although we will continue to work and try to get as much leeway as we can on this.
Good.
I suspicion that in terms of getting the state to just say, oh, that's okay, you can keep the money.
Right.
That's most likely not gonna happen. But I'm really kind of wondering if, if there'd be some percentage in going and talking to the governor and to those kind of guys and saying, hey, look at guys, number one, this was not our fault, which I'm very certain that you've already done and thought of and everything. And really trying to get some help from there that, can't we spread this out and soften it a little bit? Does it all have to come in one great big bite? Because, I remember with the great story of Ed Hirschler that, the school district here had a similar problem with this, and they went and talked to GovEd, and GovEd said, yeah, okay, don't worry, I'll fix it. But GovEd was able to fix a lot of things.
Everybody has a boss.
Yeah.
You meet him in the airport, did you? That's what we used to meet.
Yeah. But though, because that's just, that's gonna be a killer. If all of a sudden, that wipe out our savings account just like that. And so I know you've thought about all those things, but, let's go talk to the gov and see what he can do maybe. Or something.
Jesse and then Dallas.
I just wanted to quickly add, if we can't find a solution through our city attorney, maybe we could see if he could look at, what we could possibly change or advocate to our state representatives and senators to see what kind of provision that could be put in there that says, hey, look, you know, we can pay it back over the course of a year. I mean, if this would come to a vote, I definitely wouldn't be giving it back in the next couple of days, that's for sure. It's been 3 years, I'll pay it back in 3 years is how I feel about it. It's really frustrating.
Yes.
What I wanna know is if there was some wrongdoing. Because we have a 5% tax, Sweetwater County has 6, so it depends on who the vendor is. Let's say, for instance, it's a car dealer, and they ran everything through Natrona County, gave somebody good deals on cars, because they only had to pay 5% tax down here when it's 6% there. I don't know that that happened, but I wanna find out because they have a higher tax. There's a reason for some people thinking in ways to save money and rerouting money. So I don't know. But when I ask of the questions and everybody says, well, they won't tell us who the vendor is. Now, it has to take about $43 million of sales to generate that kind of a sales tax. So there's not too many businesses in those smaller towns that can do that in 2 years. So it either has to be a car dealer or some sort of mine or oil and gas operation that did this. Now, the other thing is there's a 3-year statute of limitations that applies if you were to overpay your taxes. If you don't find it within 3 years, the state won't give you back your money. And Mr. Henley's been researching that. So this is on the borderline of the statute of limitations that would apply to a normal person if they bungled this problem. Because we didn't cause this problem, as near as I can tell, because we didn't pay the tax. So we may have an issue for damages against some vendor who, if they did this intentionally, personally, I think they ought to be sued. And attorney's fees and everything should be requested, because if they did it intentionally, it's fraudulent. And we shouldn't have to suffer from it. We have budgets every year that we have to pass by law, and we have to base it on the income we're getting. And we have a right to know what that is. And once that budget year has been passed and then closed, the money's gone. It's not there anymore. Now, for them to take new money from us, I think is a wrongdoing on us. And I wouldn't just sit around here as a city council until I found out exactly what happened there. And then whether somebody would apply a statute of limitations, and I haven't researched the law myself, I would rely totally on Mr. Henley for that. But I did take the liberty of talking to one of our state legislators about this, who knows of these kind of problems. And this is a hard kick for us, to just say somebody else can create a problem and we have to pay for it. That isn't the American way, Carter. So I hope this doesn't just get handled limply and we do nothing. I think we need to do what Mike said, which is contact the governor. I think we ought to contact every legislator in this district and tell them of the problem, and then ask them to help us get the information, because this should never happen to anybody. And it has happened before. And in one instance, the county that was owed the money waived it and didn't make the other county pay it back. So there's things that can be done, apparently, here. But for us to sit around is not something that I hope that we do.
But the crisis that we have is that if, as Carter says, if the administrators there in Cheyenne just say, oh, well, we can solve this real easy, we're just going to take 1.7 million out of your next month's paycheck, that's the crisis, and I know that that's the crisis that you're aware of.
That's
if we
where
have
the
to
word
file
injunction
some,
comes
well,
in.
I know, yeah, that's what I was going to get to, is that maybe
Stop
we
them.
need to file for some injunctive relief against them, something like that. But I guess what I'm saying is I think we need to make a full court press on that, including, talking to the gov, the legislature, all of that stuff, and also looking into whether or not there'd be some injunctive relief restraining order, restraining them from doing that to us just all of a sudden, until some of these issues that Dallas has
Until,
brought up.
we're not going anywhere. They don't
Yeah.
need to do this to us immediately. It's been 5 years. So why do they wanna do it right now?
Well, because it'll be
This
easy
really
for them to
irritates
get
me.
it over with, I'm sure.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't even say they wanna work with us, it sounds to me
Yeah,
like.
well, you know, they're, not to slam on state bureaucrats, because I were one for a long time, but,
Well, we do have a few things. They haven't
Yeah.
paid their tap fee for the new office building yet.
I support Huber's suggestion.
yeah,
I do.
I don't want a war with them, I just wanna get to the bottom of it and find out if it was due to
Yeah.
some vendor who did this intentionally.
Well, and I think that whole, those are all legitimate inquiries. I think they're all legitimate reasons. Like Dallas said, we're not skipping town, we hope. But, you know, why do they have to hit us all at once?
We're saying proceed aggressively. Is that a fair
Yes.
statement?
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
After all that, I bet that was already in the process, wasn't it? I'm just guessing.
That's a big hit, I mean, that's
It's
a
a
big
huge hit.
mistake.
It's a big drag.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
that
what.
that is more than a mistake, because how do you pay, how does some company that big pay money through Natrona County? If it's just, if it was 5% there and 5% here, I wouldn't think about it.
It's no innocent mistake, it's a deliberate
No,
fraud.
yeah, well, I wouldn't say that, I don't know that, mistakes do happen, but I want
Not this.
I want an
Nothing
investigation
illegal.
to find out why this happened.
Well,
Because there has to be, you can't just, some mining company that doesn't exist in Natrona County can't pay the taxes through here. But if you've got a car dealership there, the car dealership here, and blah, 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 and this all comes through the 5% county, I don't know if that happened, but I wanna
Well,
find
I
out
know
if it did
this, I know that being parade day, I have not commitments, rather things I'd rather be doing, scheduled this evening, and I see direction requested on a legislative update. Can we talk about that before I leave?
I defer to August, whatever that is, August 14th. You'll hear from me.
Okay. Okay, counselor on the table. Chris, do you have anything?
I'm proud of our police department. They keep our community safe. And oftentimes they're difficult days, and they'll do it again tomorrow, and they'll keep our community safe time after time after time. So everything they do is for the betterment of this entire community, and I appreciate that. And I would like to add, it may not, I certainly don't think it was intentional by anybody at this table, but when we had the great debate about the maintenance code and that kind of thing, inadvertently, there's been some comments made that are certainly appear critical of our code enforcement people. And I'll give you some examples from my perspective. We got some people, the grass is too long. There's yards over here with weeds in it. You know, I don't know what the count is, but I think it's 30 to 35,000 homes in this town. And I believe it's 3 code enforcement officers. So when we make those statements, keep in mind, it can be perceived nothing, any different by our code enforcement officers to think we don't have any confidence in them. They're not doing their job. They're doing what they can do given the scope of their work. So I know that wasn't your intention, but I think pointed out that it could have a negative aspect on the people, something to keep in mind.
Mike?
I agree with Councilman Walsh. I have a great deal of confidence in our inspectors and everything, and in all of my experience working with them, I've always found them to be very helpful and accommodating and able to be worked with. And any of the, you know, my talk about how long your grass is and that kind of thing is just my disappointment of that as a community, people seem to worry about how long your grass is, but they don't care about whether people are living in safe and habitable houses. And that will continue to be a disappointment until it's addressed in some manner. The only other thing that I would like to offer is I do have absolute total confidence in our police department and everything. I thought that it was a real breath of fresh air, Chief McPeters, with that last tragedy. And you know, because always in the past, there's always been, well, we're not gonna release the names of the officers involved in things and that's not fair to the police department, it's not fair to the citizens of the community. They, you know, if anyone else other than a law enforcement officer was tragically involved in a shooting and had to shoot somebody or injure someone, you can bet that their name would be out there really quick. And to me, that seemed, and I had a lot of people tell me, boy, that's a double standard, that if you're a police officer, your name doesn't get put out there until months or a long time later. And I thought the way that you handled things before was just truly a breath of fresh air in that regard, and I hope that kind of continues that way, because, you know, it's a horrible tragedy when somebody's involved in that kind of thing, whether if you're a private citizen or a policeman or whatever. But, you know, I just wanted to compliment you on how you had handled that, and I hope that you continue handling that in that open sort of a manner.
Don't really have anything tonight, but I just wanted to tell Chris, I continue to get feedback from CNFR. People love CNFR, and they thought the city of Casper just jumps through hoops to make it happen, and I just keep getting positive feedback on that, so that's good to hear. That's it.
I went to Riverton yesterday to testify in front of the opioid task force committee, and it went really well. There's a lot of information that, you know, the State Board of Nursing, the Board of Pharmacy, the Board of Medicine talked there. Also, the director of DCI, and you know, there's a lot of things that they're doing and looking at. You know, I think we mentioned earlier of class action lawsuits, and I think the AG is sending out letters to reach out to counties. I thought it was interesting that they're not necessarily reaching out to cities, and the chair, Senator Bebout, did say it would be strange, or he heard that some counties and some cities wanted to approach that themselves, and he, I guess, cautioned against that. But I thought you brought up a good point of Wyoming leaving a lot of money on the table, potentially, when they went after tobacco companies. So it might be worth looking into. In terms of accepting the idea, Representative Summers was really harping on everybody. What's the suggestion, whether it was a public comment or people that were actually on the agenda from, you know, the Board of Medicine or DECI for that matter, of what will you do or what can you do, what ideas do you have for us, does a state law need to be changed and things like that. So I think they're really receptive to this idea, and hopefully we can maybe see state funding for other substance abuse items, but it will still come down to, I guess, a policy by council or by our city manager on whether to adopt it or not. So maybe that'll be a discussion down the road. But talking to some of the players within our own community, they're on board without even trying to seek state funding for a grant right now. So I think that it speaks volumes really on how people feel about helping our community. The caregivers live in this community too, and they care a great deal about the future. So it would be a good program to adopt one of these days. The next thing I would ask council if we could create the policy now, or if it has to be a resolution for second and third readings to make sure that the same criteria for the first reading moves on to the second and third reading when it comes to ordinances, and that just allows public comment for and against each time without the headache of getting your name on there and things like that. Creates a more welcoming environment. We even heard from, you know, city staff, they were cautioning on even talking about a particular entity, and you know, it's already intimidating for people. So when they're talking against code enforcement or anything like that, you know, a lot of people were giving their name and address, and they were worried about, you know, am I going to get any repercussions? And we're already seeing, you know, our own staff even tonight actually talking about own repercussions of talking about an entity. So if we can make that whole process as smooth and easy as possible, everyone would benefit from it.
Is anybody interested? Go ahead, Chris.
I believe you two guys brought this up, and just to have it operate the same on second, third reading as on the first reading with the public comment, no restrictions on being able to sign up. those people will talk to us anyway, whether it's before the fact or after the fact. So I agree, we should do it just like a first reading on all of them. When we lose nothing, people get to have a conversation. I wouldn't do any more, and I was for last week's thing, allowing public comment after a vote that we made. That just became a, yeah, I don't know, but that was counterproductive. But before the vote, I think that's fine.
Well, it's insulting to people. So, yeah, we'll listen to you after we decide it.
Well, and there also becomes a time when you can be insulting to me, and I don't need to listen to you. And that's
In calling you a communist or not.
after we clearly voted against it, yeah. So, you know, it's a two-way street, but I think we should have just run it like the first reading.
Me too.
Everybody all right with that? Anybody objections, I guess?
I don't have objections, it's a big change from policies that have been
I
in
don't
place for
think
a
we
long,
disallow
long
it right
time.
now. If somebody wants to talk about something, it can, we give the right to anybody to pull off the agenda. They really want to be there, make them take a little extra effort rather than go through 3 public hearings on an ordinance. That's what you're doing.
Quick, Chris, and then Dallas, and then.
Bob, I think we spend the same amount of time there, but when you talk about this the way we've always done it, give me some objective reasons why we did it.
I can't.
And if we
can't,
don't have a reason, then either we historically lost the knowledge on why it was, or it just never was.
Well,
Go ahead, Dallas, and then Jesse.
So, I made this suggestion some time ago, and I'm glad that we're now talking about it again. We have some protocols here, Bob, that just really aren't very good, and just because they've been done for years, when I hear that, it's like I've had to train myself to not say that, because I've heard it all over the state of Wyoming in some court. Well, we've never done it that way before. Well, the rule's been in place and you haven't followed it for 3 years, so maybe you ought to change it. But the school board impressed me because they have all their public comment before they start the meeting. Now, I suggested we just try it, see how it works. We can change, we can modify things like we do, and we can change things. But to have the comments at a late period, making these people all, and I don't think we ought to make it hard on them either, Bob. I think it ought to be easy for them to come down here, get their 5 minutes. I don't think anybody should interrupt them or beat them up. It's their chance to say what they want, and we're, by God, should hear it. We can make our comments afterwards. But I think if they come down, they give their talks, we won't be here till 9:30 at night anymore. Because people that wait until that last moment, they're gonna, by God, let us know what they think. They're gonna do it anyway. But I think we ought to change the protocol. And how we do these ordinances is like, we were totally unprepared for that ordinance, Mr. Manager. We should have all had the book, and the way it was orchestrated was, your people came in and didn't make any presentation and waited for us to ask questions. How do people ask questions when most people can't read that kind of a book, including most members of the council? So we were terribly unprepared for that. Now, if we were prepared, we would have all had the book, we would have had a work session, Craig and everybody would come in, we would find out what's these penalties. We're really gonna fine our people every day for the day they don't have their house painted. Are we really gonna do that? Are we really gonna make something sound like a code enforcement officer can come in your house if they want to? No, we're not gonna do that. So you have this laid out, just like the legislator does. You have the public comment come in, and then you pass the ordinance. And so I would suggest our protocol change on that, and we let the people talk before we move.
So, Jesse, go ahead, because I want to make sure that we move forward, because I know Carter said he had a comment about Jesse's proposal. But go ahead, Jesse.
Well, after listening to that, you know, it does actually make sense having it before, because public comment is what's on the agenda. So if a lot of people are going to speak out, maybe that'll give us a chance to have a no vote on, you know, an item that's on that night's agenda, as opposed to after the fact, then they're just saying, hey, I didn't like that you voted on it. So that kind of makes sense to have public comment beforehand. But that's just quickly thinking about it.
Jesse, you might wanna leave before it rains too.
I won't know.
Nice haircut, Mike.
That's just the question.
So what can we, just before the judge walks out, can we,
I'm willing to try it.
Yeah.
public
But I
comment
just-
beforehand?
But I'd like to hear, I just don't know if there's a reason not to do it.
I'd be
Not
in
coming up
favor.
with one.
Okay.
Carter's seen it both ways, haven't you?
Mr. Mayor, I'm hearing a couple directions here. With regard to having the public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I am certainly familiar with that format, and I can't point to any fatal flaws that would indicate that's a bad idea. So if indeed council would like that to happen, we can make it happen.
Let's give it a try, we can always switch.
And then still do the public, take input as in second and third reading?
That to me is a different question.
Okay.
And so if I could address that for just a second. I couldn't agree more with the idea that public hearings and so forth are beneficial to the public dialogue. And so in that regard, I think that is a good thing. But what I think council should be aware of is with regard to the rules that you establish to have a civil dialogue on the matter before you. Because the reality is, if you're not having public hearings to encourage debate and to encourage viewpoints from the broad spectrum of your community, you're not really doing a good service to the democratic ideal of, again, public debate. And so my encouragement would be, yes, let's do public hearings, but I do think you need to allow the mayor to enforce the rules that you establish so that the public dialogue is productive and fruitful and helpful to the discussion versus allowing 15 people come back every 3 hearings to say the exact same thing over and over and over again and use the same vitriol over and over and over again, because the reality is that is a tool, in my opinion, to intimidate those who might have a differing view from even getting up there and having a civil engagement with regard to the dialogue that you hope to gain input for.
Of course,
I'm all
Carter,
for that.
if we allow the speaking before every meeting, they've spoke before we vote on the ordinance anyway.
Well,
So that takes care of it.
And I think there's 2 different things here, because you've got an open mic portion, which in my opinion should be for things and ideas and so forth that you need from your public that isn't necessarily pertaining to what you have on the agenda.
But they can speak of it though.
Well, you're going to have a public hearing with regard to the ordinances, though, if I'm hearing you correctly. And in my opinion, those should be intact with the item on that particular portion of the agenda.
Just have the mayor hold them to topic,
Yes.
enforce the no repetition rule, and
no beating up on council,
If you're
no
gonna be
beating up on
nasty,
staff. That's right. That's right.
take
But
it to
if
the
you don't,
outlet.
if you don't change it, where there's a public hearing before the second and third reading, they still can comment on it the way we're setting up the comments now. So it takes care of it. You still have the public hearing on the first reading. You don't have a public hearing on the second reading, but what they do is they come in and make their statements, and then we go on to the votes.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman, that sounds like a different suggestion than what I thought I heard the
No,
group.
that's what I was thinking.
You think that
When it
having
went
that
into my
public hearing
mind,
at the
because
beginning takes care of?
If he opens the meeting and now the public comes up and there's things on second reading and they've seen it, they wanna get up and say something, go ahead, that's their 5 minutes.
How about if I offer it like this? Do we wanna try, public comment at the beginning of the meeting?
And that's
what I
open
think we
mic,
voted
right?
on, yeah.
The
I think
open
everybody's
mic
good
stuff.
with that.
Okay, do we wanna allow regular public comment as on the first reading, on all ordinances, all readings?
I would like to reserve that and see how this other thing works.
What's
Jesse.
everybody else say?
I just wanted to quickly say, another reason why I wanted it set up just like on the first reading for the second and third is we don't get a chance to discuss it further on the second and third. So there's no discussion period, there's no amendments or anything like that that's in the script that we get. And I know we've talked about it in the past. Yeah, sure, council has every right to bring forth that motion. However, it's not really set up in that fashion, and it's not set up for us to discuss it. So
Well,
I
we're
just
not
wanted
as-
discussion period.
Jesse, if we got prepared like I'm thinking we should, at that first reading, all of this wouldn't be a problem.
Well, this hasn't been the first ordinance though.
No,
that-
I
that
know.
I've looked at it and said, you know, it would've been nice to talk
But
about that.
people aren't prepared enough
For the
sometimes.
democratic process.
But sometimes people aren't prepared enough until the second reading, they finally start understanding it.
Exactly, so if we had the ability to discuss it, which we don't in its current form, unless we adopt that, the same format for the first reading.
So I'm for doing the way he says when I rethink it, because I think we do gain more information, we get more educated by the second and third reading. And I think when you're passing an ordinance, you should be as educated as you possibly can get yourself.
So Jesse's suggestion is having that be second and third. I mean, I guess who would, the other side of it is that we're missing 3 council members. Do we want to make a decision on that without those council members? Is that?
Do we have a quorum here?
We can see if it works, and then
Just give it a shot.
So you're saying we're gonna have a public hearing at every reading of an ordinance? Is that what you're saying?
That's
Any,
Now, how is
any
that,
opposed or any
you're gonna have to
for?
explain to me how this is different when somebody says, I wanna speak to this ordinance and makes the effort to call and get on the agenda.
There's
How is
no
that
effort
different?
needed, and if they learned about it, maybe a Monday afternoon after that deadline, or maybe it was Tuesday morning where they found out.
I mean,
that
this is
we
a
had
6-week
ordinance.
period though. From,
We're just making
from-
it easier on them, because people aren't as educated as you think and don't pay as much attention as you think. And you can see from that last meeting about the number of people that got up, because we opened it up to them that wouldn't have been able to speak had we not done that. which
How
was-
much did we hear different from the first one to
We
the
did,
last
but
one?
it- But
Nothing.
Bob, but that isn't the issue, Bob, but let's people say
Well,
something.
no, I understand what you're saying. If you wanna waste your time, listen to everybody in Casper talk to you about a given
But that
ordinance.
isn't true.
Do it.
We're not listening to everybody in Casper,
so let's
Bob.
vote on wasting our time.
We listen to 25 people.
I'm willing to try
I'm
it,
good. Give it a
but
shot.
I do think the mayor should have the authority to say, you were here last week, do you have something new to say to us that you didn't say last week?
Same thing with
meeting?"
anybody that comes up and is repetitive about.
Which he does say that, and we do let him do the repetitive part. But so if you're saying now, we have 30 people signed up, do you have something new to say that hasn't already been said? And I really liked what Tracy did. He says, how many people are in here are against this ordinance? And everybody raised their hands. Why do you need to say anything after that?
Bingo.
I'll
You
try
know?
it, but let's
Let's
just,
vote.
I'll go with it for now.
But we ought to try it. And I guess
That's why I voted for it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still doing council around the table. Dallas, you have anything?
No.
Again, I apologize for not being there last Tuesday, and I did watch it. Just 2 comments. One is, I think that people were right to complain that we voted on something that they couldn't read. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. The second thing we need to make sure that doesn't happen again is that our staff proposes something to us. We hear from all of the members of the public about why that is a problem, but we never give our own staff a chance to explain their reasons for making that proposal. And that's what we did. And that should not
But
happen.
that wasn't set up that way. That was told to us that that's the way that was gonna happen. Carter said, they're here, if you have questions, and nobody asked them any questions, if they would have called on them to speak to the deal, I think that was, I just didn't like the way any of that happened, Charlie. We should be more educated. The staff should get up and explain like we've done in the past, where they get up and they give an explanation of why they're doing this. But I understand why Carter did that, kind of, because I knew, it was gonna be time consuming. But personally, on ordinances where we're gonna put stuff on people, I don't care about the time.
I'm not concerned about time. I'm just saying, we talk about how we value our staff. Nothing's more discouraging for a staff member than to make a proposal to the council and never get a
But
chance.
that's how it was presented
So-
to us by management.
So what we should have done in retrospect, and I'm guilty of this because I didn't see the things that you all bought, those of you who voted against it on first reading, I didn't see those things. And as I looked at them again, I said, this is something we really need to reconsider. Should have happened in a work session. We should have had our own staff tell us, why do you need these tools anyway?
When
Mr.
staff's
Mr.
defense,
Pat
we
said
didn't
you
get
got,
an email.
Mr. Pat
to
said
do
you
it.
don't need these, you've got state law. I'd like to have that debate in a work session and give our own staff a chance to explain their reasons for why they thought this was necessary. We never did that.
I
So
think
we did
this
get an
was a-
email that said those books were available on Tuesday, and when I picked mine up, well, I think most of them were still available in the office
Well, I bought
on
mine
the next
before
Tuesday.
that, so I'll tell you this, we all did that wrong.
Well, that's fine.
Okay, the staff did it wrong, the majority of us did it wrong. How many people voted on it without reading it? I don't believe there was a grand conspiracy to get everybody in a jam, but let's not just point fingers directly across without assuming the responsibility ourselves.
Bingo.
I'm just saying next
We're,
time,
we're
let's
all,
be
the
sure we
whole
hear
city's
from them.
responsible for that.
Yeah.
It's not just one person.
And I think we'll do better next time.
We need a protocol. We need a protocol.
We have a protocol,
To follow.
it just didn't happen on this one. Everything that we see in here, we have the ability to review, we have the ability to see. You see something that looks out of line, you have the responsibility to just delve into it a little bit. Anything that appears bizarrely unique, kind of like this one, you know, I would expect that the staff would have said, hey, better pay attention to this one, it's gonna cause you a problem. But it didn't happen. Let's not.
And the
I'm not,
responsibility,
I'm not
into each
pointing
other.
fingers, I'm just saying for next time, let's
I
be
think
sure.
it's fair to point fingers at all of us.
Okay.
It could have been done on the presentation side, could have been done better on
Yeah,
the
it was-
decision
it
maker
was-
side.
It was a problem with
Let's
everybody.
just learn from it, that's all I'm
That's
saying.
all, I agree, 100%.
But guess what happened? We fixed it. And why? Because we let all those people come in that
It's not why I
well,
voted
no,
for it, because I
because
already
we
I
got
already read it.
educated. We had to look at some of those provisions to see what they were saying. So people got educated, and then guess what happens? Everybody votes against it.
And I guess I would also point out that on our grid, it's not listed.
I've noticed that. And I want to reiterate to the council how much I appreciate you give me an opportunity, staff an opportunity to come back with a revision that makes more sense with regard to the feedback that you not only gave but collected as well. So thank you. And you're going to see that. And you're going to see it without the things that you found objectionable, which I don't disagree with. But if I could make one particular comment, I do appreciate what you're saying, and I recognize exactly what you're saying. But I also want to say, much of the direction that you've given to us with regard to staff presenting in work sessions has been along the lines of make the assumption that council has read the information and they will come prepared with questions. And so we have tried very deliberately to keep our presentations to a minimum and open this time almost specifically for you to give us questions. And so we've tried very, very deliberately to follow that model, which I thought is what the direction was that you gave us. We can accommodate whatever direction you'd like us to take. And I mean that sincerely because we want you to be successful, and we want to be successful.
So when it
With
comes to
regard to-
passing a law, Carter, I, for one, I want to know everything about it before I have to step in there and vote on this law that
Sure.
puts people in jail or fine them or make them do things.
I agree.
The rest of the stuff, you know, a lot of it's easy to read. That international
Complex.
code,
Yep.
the people that wrote that came from Harvard, and most of them don't understand the damn thing in practical terms.
And we will do better
But
next
when a
time, I
realtor
promise.
gets up there and says, you're making Casper an HOA and every house is a violation, she won the oratory contest for that
And
one.
I think she's wrong. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why next time we bring it forward. I promise. We'll do a better job.
Look forward to it
Good
next
deal.
time.
We'll do a better job. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
I don't
you.
have anything, so.
Okay.
That's
move
good.
forward.
Thanks, everybody. Happy parade day.
We're out of here.
Yeah, happy parade.
And fair week.